Stationary methods such as rowing machines, skiing ergometers, and air bikes or assault bikes are one of the most simple and straightforward methods when it comes to building conditioning, especially for the sport of wrestling or combat sports in general. So what is the main advantage of using those stationary methods instead of, for example, running or circuit training? The main advantage is that you can track your progress effectively because you have the LCD screen that gives you those metrics. You can track your pace, your wattage, distance covered, and those things. This allows you to set goals, and you can approach your conditioning sessions in a game-like quality and track the parameters. And what is the biggest con with using those methods? It is the limited movement pattern, which is often locked into a single and monotonous position. Nevertheless, those instruments are valuable if they are approached in a smart manner, in the appropriate time frame, in conjunction with more sport-specific methods. And this will be the topic of this video. We will go through the pros and cons of each stationary method. The first thing that comes to mind when we think of endurance machines is the treadmills. This is one of the most universal and accessible methods you can use. It allows you to target your energetic aspects like we discussed through the LCD monitor, more specifically the pace and the calories burned and things of this nature. You also have the capacity to increase the inclination on most machines, but using a treadmill for conditioning for wrestling has some inherent problems. First of all, it only emphasizes or mainly emphasizes the lower body. A wrestler needs endurance in the upper body as well. And number two, it has a high impact, which is especially problematic for a wrestler that does not possess running form. And running form takes some time to develop. It's a pretty complex mechanism, believe it or not, and a lot of people, a lot of athletes out there, they don't know how to run correctly. And number two, a wrestler already has very demanding training sessions, and if you add treadmill sessions or running sessions on top of that with high impact, it might occasionally be too much. And despite those cons, weirdly enough, this seems to be a popular method in many training facilities, but despite it having little resemblance or suitability for wrestling. I would see this training method as a last result if this is the last option you have, unless combined with other sport-specific instruments. So, method number two, we have the arm ergometer or the arm crank machine, and this is basically a bicycle but for the upper body. It has a pedal-like mechanism where you can pedal with your upper body. This is a great and wrestling-specific method that you can use for your upper body predominantly, and the biggest advantage with this is obviously the LCD monitor once again. You can track your progress. And additionally, most of those machines, they have adjustable resistance which you can then manipulate from session to session to overload and induce variation. Although this method is very wrestling specific, the only con is that it only emphasizes the upper body. As wrestlers, we also need to be conditioned in the lower body. But that doesn't mean you need to ignore it altogether. There are some solutions. For instance, during the week you can delegate one endurance session for the upper body and another for the lower body. Or you can perform them both in the same session in an alternating manner, or you perform half of the session upper body or half of the session lower body. Another con is that they can be pricey and are most likely only available in high budget facilities. Either way, if approached in a smart manner and in conjunction with lower body methods, I rank this instrument very wrestling specific and I would recommend it. Next up we have the air bike, also known as the assault bike, and this is a relatively new introduction to the strength and conditioning world. The main advantage behind this is that it is a total body emphasis in a low impact manner. It's not very technically demanding, so the learning curve is very low. You just sit on the bike, push off with the levers, pull with the levers while pedaling with your lower body. Anyone can do this. And the resistance you experience on this bike is based on the amount of air you generate while pedaling, meaning that your resistance is increased in direct proportion to your pedaling intensity. The LCD is your friend in all of those ergometers. You can track and manipulate and set goals on the distance covered, the wattage, the calories burned, any metric of your choice. This is the main advantage behind those methods once again, don't forget this. Based on those factors, if I could only choose one stationary method for endurance development in wrestling, the air bike would most likely be a suitable candidate for this, because once again it's total body, you get the metrics. So what's the main problem with this training instrument? Like most other ergometers, despite its total body emphasis, the movement is in a relatively locked pattern. And it merely emphasizes a pedaling motion for the lower body, which is not very suitable for wrestling because you don't pedal in wrestling. So it cannot be relied as the only training method for wrestling conditioning. But neither can any other method. Use it with common sense and in conjunction with other training methods depending on your training cycle and your current needs. This is the whole premise of periodization, focusing on certain athletic attributes in one period before going other to more sport specific or other attributes that you need to focus on. I will make more videos about this in the future, and I have in the past. Please check them out. And then we have the rowing ergometer. This is a machine that comes straight from the pits of hell. I can even hear the sounds of it in my head at this moment, and it fills me with anxiety. Like the assault bike, this has a total body emphasis as well, and it's easy to believe that this is an upper body dominant exercise, but the legs are actually involved tremendously here as well. They should be, at least. You push off with your legs and you pull with the upper body. And like the air bike, the resistance you experience is based on the amount of air you generate while pulling. And it can prove very useful to wrestling due to its upper body pulling emphasis while not neglecting the lower body, and upper body pulling is very evident in wrestling matches. However, this training instrument requires a great deal of technical understanding, and additionally when it comes to the upper body it only involves the pulling motion, meaning that the posterior muscles are emphasized much more than the anterior muscles because the pushing motion is left out. Next up we have the skiing ergometer, and this is an excellent tool that allows for freedom of movement. It is probably one of the least locked of the ergometers that we have discussed, and it's pretty specific to wrestling in terms of muscle emphasis and movements. A lot of hand fighting and head pulling in wrestling. This is similar to the movement experienced in the skiing ergometer. And it involves the handles that are connected to this flywheel overhead with a resistance mechanism that increases in proportion to the intensity you exert once again. And you will stand on a platform and hold the handles while performing these overhead pulling motions with your entire body collectively, meaning that your lower body is involved as well. And originally this machine was developed for cross-country skiers, but due to its movement similarity to wrestling, it is a great training tool for those as well. The only problem, however, as in the rowing machine, is that this one mainly emphasizes the pulling motion when it comes to conditioning. It highly neglects the pushing motion, which is also important for a wrestler. So it should therefore be used in conjunction with other methods as well. And another recent invention straight from the pits of hell that is gaining increased popularity in the training facilities and especially in combat sport is the Versa Climber. This instrument emphasizes the entire body head to toe. It is designed to mimic the movement of climbing a ladder, a very special ladder that you would probably only use when trying to escape hell. It has two handles and foot pedals attached to a frame, and you will stand on the foot pedals and hold on to the handles, and then using both your upper and lower body you will engage in a climbing motion. A very intense one, straight from the pits of hell. It is highly useful for total body sport like wrestling, and it involves every single major motion. Pulling, pushing, both with the lower and upper body, all in a low impact manner. And the resistance can be further adjusted. It's like many other stationary training methods, this is a locked movement plane, and mostly in a vertical plane, neglecting the horizontal plane. So, to wrap things up, while stationary methods allow for high practicality and valuable metrics due to the built-in computer that they are not the most sport-specific alternative. They have their time and they have their place. There is no single best method when it comes to sports development. A mixed methods approach is always the way to go.